You will pay for Bianca's $5,000 designer wedding dress, Bridget, or I will cut off your final college tuition before you can even graduate. You are a selfish, ungrateful child. My father's cruel voice booms across the crowded wedding rehearsal dinner, making everyone turn to stare at me. He thinks he holds my entire future in his hands. He has no idea I have already graduated valedictorian 3 weeks ago, landed a $125,000 career, and I am currently holding an envelope that will strip away his power forever. Thank you for watching this video. Before I take you back there, do me one small favor. Take a second to like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is where you are. It helps more than you know. My name is Bridget. I am 22 years old, and for my entire life, I have been the invisible slave for my family, existing only to pave the way for my sister, the golden child. Growing up, my mother Bernadette and my father Byron treated Bianca like absolute royalty. She was the undisputed princess of our household. Bianca received brand new luxury vehicles, expensive private dance lessons, and $1,000 shopping allowances. I received her discarded hand-me-downs and a never-ending list of household chores. My parents created a completely toxic environment where Bianca was praised for simply breathing, while I was punished for daring to exist. My father had a favorite phrase he loved to repeat whenever I asked for the bare minimum, whether it was money for school supplies or a new winter coat. You have to earn your keep, Bridget. That cruel little sentence became the dark soundtrack of my miserable youth. He always delivered it with a cold sneer, making sure I knew my place at the absolute bottom of his kingdom. My mother was even worse. Bernadette was a woman entirely consumed by appearances. She was completely obsessed with climbing the social ladder, and she viewed Bianca's pretty face as her golden ticket to high society. I was just the quiet, studious embarrassment she had to hide in the background. When I was accepted into a highly prestigious engineering program in Seattle, Washington, my parents shockingly agreed to pay my first semester tuition. The bill was exactly $14,500. For a brief, foolish moment, I actually thought they finally loved me. I thought they finally recognized my worth. I was completely wrong. It was a trap. They did not pay that money out of love. They paid it to buy a leash. For the next 4 years, they absolutely refused to pay another single dime toward my education or my living expenses. Yet, they used that one initial payment to blackmail me, manipulate me, and demand my total obedience. Whenever I tried to stand up for myself, my father would immediately threaten to withdraw his financial support, conveniently ignoring the fact that he was not actually providing any. The heaviest chains we wear are often forged by the people who are supposed to love us the most. I refused to let them break me. I worked 3 exhausting part-time jobs. I scrubbed floors in cafeterias, I served coffee at dawn, and I studied until my eyes literally bled. I ate cheap noodles while my mother took Bianca on lavish vacations to Europe. They thought I was their helpless prey, securely trapped in their financial snare. Little did they know, their constant neglect had forged me into something completely unbreakable. 3 weeks before Bianca's extravagant wedding to a wealthy man named Preston, I accomplished the impossible. I secretly graduated valedictorian of my university class. Furthermore, my relentless hard work caught the attention of top industry recruiters. I quietly signed a binding corporate contract with Apex Ridge Engineering, stepping into a role as an environmental engineer with a starting salary of $125,000 a year. I told absolutely no one in my family. I kept my mouth shut and I waited. While my mother was busy blowing up my phone with nasty text messages, demanding I act like a proper peasant for her golden daughter's special day, I was preparing my final move. I walked into my local bank. I sat down with the teller and requested a certified cashier's check for exactly $14,500. I took that heavy piece of paper and placed it inside a thick white envelope, right next to a certified copy of my valedictorian degree and my new corporate employment contract. My father thought he was the apex predator of our family. He did not realize he was walking blindly into my snare. The wedding venue was a ridiculously luxurious estate overlooking the water. There were walls of white roses, towering champagne fountains, and hundreds of wealthy judgmental guests mingling on the manicured lawns. I arrived exactly 15 minutes late. I wore a simple, elegant navy dress that I had purchased myself. My mother spotted me instantly. She marched across the grass, her face twisted in utter disgust. "You look like a cheap maid, Bridget, but at least you are here to pay your debts," she sneered, her voice dripping with venom. Before I could even respond, my father approached. He puffed out his chest, looking like a king surveying his conquered kingdom. He purposely positioned himself right in front of Preston's extremely wealthy family, ensuring he had an audience for his display of dominance. He held out his hand toward me. "Hand over the money for the designer dress, Bridget, or your college career is officially terminated," he commanded. "I will call the bursar's office tomorrow and cancel everything." I looked at him. I felt absolutely icy. My heart did not race. My palms did not sweat. I was completely frozen in my unshakable resolve. "Here is the money, Father. Open it in front of everyone. Let them see how generous you have been." My voice was completely flat. It carried no anger, no sadness, only a terrifying calm. He snatched the envelope eagerly. He ripped it open, a smug grin plastered across his face, fully expecting a thick stack of cash to fund his golden child's fantasy. Then the mask slipped. His face completely drained of color. His smug grin vanished, replaced by a look of profound horror as he pulled out the official documents. He stared wildly at the certified cashier's check. His trembling eyes moved to the corporate employment contract, bearing the heavy legal watermark of Apex Ridge Engineering. He stared at the university seal stamped onto my valedictorian certificate. His entire world crumbled in a single instant. The grand illusion of his immense wealth and absolute control shattered into a million jagged pieces right there on the pristine marble floor. "I paid you back every single penny," I stated, my cold voice piercing the sudden, heavy silence of the grand hall. "You have no leverage over me anymore. You have nothing. Enjoy the wedding." I turned around and walked away. I left them standing there, completely paralyzed, drowning in their own public humiliation while the wealthy guests whispered fiercely among themselves. The fallout was absolutely staggering. A few weeks later, the entire facade of my parents' fake high society life completely collapsed. The legal institutional reality came crashing down on their heads. Preston, Bianca's new husband, contacted me in sheer panic. He had quietly hired a forensic accountant to look into my father's financial portfolio after witnessing the scene at the wedding. The truth was horrifying. My father was not a successful financial consultant. He was a complete fraud. He had taken out massive predatory loans from dangerous lenders. He had committed severe estate fraud by leveraging properties he did not actually own. He owed the federal government tens of thousands in unpaid back taxes. Worst of all, he had been secretly begging Preston for a $25,000 bailout to stop the bank from seizing his home. "They did not build a legacy, Preston," I told him calmly over the phone. "They built a house of cards, and the wind is finally blowing. Do not sign a single financial document with that man." The unbearable stress of the impending federal audit and the arrival of official eviction notices finally broke my father. He suffered a massive heart attack and was rushed to the county hospital in the middle of the night. The next morning, my mother called me. She was weeping hysterically, completely unhinged. "Your career can wait, Bridget. Your father is dying in the intensive care unit. You need to quit that job, come home, and take over the estate finances immediately. You owe this family." I felt absolutely nothing. I was a glacier. "I am setting boundaries, Mother. You did not care about my future when I was starving in college, so do not ask me to drown with you now." I hung up the phone. 3 days later, I received a frantic handwritten letter from my father's hospital bed. It was a pathetic, manipulative mandate, calling me a traitor to my own blood and demanding my immediate compliance to save his fraudulent empire. I calmly walked into my kitchen, turned on the stove, struck a match, and burned his ridiculous letter into ash. I entirely consumed myself with my new career. I poured all my pain, all my anger, and all my brilliance into a massive municipal infrastructure project for the city. My supervisor, a brilliant woman named Millicent, saw my sheer potential and put me in charge of the primary presentation. I stood in front of the city council, answering every grueling technical question with absolute perfection. We won the federal contract. I was heavily featured in the local business journals. My face was printed on the front page, holding an official commendation plaque directly from the mayor's office. Seeing my sudden undeniable public success, my mother desperately tried to crawl back into my life. She mailed me a framed copy of the newspaper article, accompanied by a long whining letter begging to reconcile. She thought she could cast her net and trap me once again. I took the heavy frame, walked out to the alley, and threw it directly into the garbage dumpster. They loved the glowing success of their daughter, but they never loved the broken daughter who had to bleed for it. Even Bianca eventually realized the truth. Shortly after the federal warrants were issued for my father's business documents, she showed up at my apartment building. The golden child looked completely shattered, stripped of her royal arrogance. She stood in my doorway and sobbed, apologizing for being utterly blind to their toxic abuse. She finally saw that our parents had used her as a shiny prop while treating me like garbage. I accepted her apology, but I kept my door firmly closed. I had spent my whole life living in her shadow, and I was finally ready to stand in the sun by myself. It is now exactly 1 year later. I am sitting on the quiet balcony of my beautiful apartment, drinking hot coffee and watching the morning fog roll over the Seattle skyline. I am at peace in my beautiful new life, while they are living their worst nightmare. My parents lost absolutely everything. Their sprawling estate went into immediate foreclosure. Deputies from the county sheriff's department arrived and physically escorted them off the property. They were thoroughly investigated for widespread financial fraud, and barely escaped federal prison by liquidating every single asset they possessed. They now live in a tiny rundown apartment on the extreme outskirts of the city. My father, stripped of his fake kingdom, works as a late-night security guard at a warehouse. My mother, who used to mock my cheap clothes, now wears a stained uniform and scrubs floors at a local diner. They are utterly shattered. My father still calls my phone sometimes. He leaves desperate, weeping voicemails begging for financial help, begging for a second chance, begging for me to fix the ruined pieces of his life. I never answer. You have to earn your keep, Byron, I whisper softly to myself, pressing the delete button on my phone. Standing up for yourself is not being selfish. It is the first critical step toward living a life that is truly your own. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. It was a long and painful road, but standing up to my toxic family was the absolute best decision I ever made in my entire life. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have handed him that envelope at the wedding in front of everyone? Or would you have just walked away quietly and never looked back? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and loved seeing justice properly served, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another dramatic tale. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember your true worth is defined solely by you, not by those who are too blind to see it.